Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Insurance Basecamp's first ever podcast. That's right. We're rolling out a podcast where we can inform you, your friends, your family, anyone who cares about the insurance world, about updates, best practices, and just overall good information to have. My name is Reese Phillips. I'm the owner and founder of Insurance Basecamp. And with me today, we're very honored to have one of my good friends and probably one of the most knowledgeable people about the Medicare space, Bob from Pinnacle, with us. Bob, can you hear me okay?
All good, man. Glad to be here. Appreciate your time. Looking forward to our conversation today.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're excited to launch the first ever podcast for the Insurance Basecamp family. We were planning on starting it in 2024, everyone, but because of this new ruling that is coming out that's impacting the Medicare agents, we thought we'd roll it out here in late December of 2023 to get the information out to everybody. So just to give everyone an understanding of what this is going to look like, me and Bob are going to chat a little bit just to get to know, so you guys get to know who he is, what he does, what he's passionate about. You guys will hear all of that stuff about me in episodes coming down the road. But then we're going to jump into a big decision process that the federal government's going through in regards to how commissions are being paid for people that focus in the Medicare space. So that's really the core of the podcast today. So with that being said, let me just turn it over to you, Bob. Bob, I'd love for you to give a little bit of intro to kind of what you do, everything about Pinnacle that you want people to know and things like that, so the audience gets an understanding of, who we are who you guys are and how that all fits into the puzzle.
Yeah, absolutely. No, appreciate it. Thank you again for giving me some time here today. My name is Bob Brzyski. I am Vice President of Marketing at Pinnacle Financial Services. We are a national brokerage, FMO, BGA, whatever the terminology you want to use. Back office support for agents and agencies across the country and a lot of different products, Medicare being a big part of what we do. I am also on the NABIP, formerly NAHU, Medicare FMO Council. So I spent a lot of time with them and going through how to make our Medicare Advantage world a little bit better, right? So they're a great partner for agents and agencies across the country. And they really work hand in hand with the government, with CMS, making sure that the decisions that come down, how are they going to impact our world? How are they going to impact beneficiaries? And that's really what we're going to get into today, right? So it's going to be the conversation on the new CMS proposed rule, quote unquote proposed rule. It hasn't gone into effect yet, 2025. So we're even going way in the future. We're talking about next AEP that this would be in effect. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it's exciting to hear this, and I'm excited to hear from ultimately your level of viewpoint, because you and the team at Pinnacle really have a bigger impact or a better reach to understand what's really going on. So for everyone who's listening, who's a street level agent, who's an agency owner like myself, to FMOs, things like that, they're going to have a better understanding of how this is actually going to roll out, because ultimately their distribution is one of the largest distributions in the country. So they're going to get basically a seat at the table, as Bob was referencing to earlier, to see what's coming down the pipe and how it's going to impact us. And I can tell you, from my personal view, if it wasn't for the team at Pinnacle, the team at Slate, I would not be where I'm at today. My team would not be where we're at today. So to think that the government is trying to impact our support system is very concerning to me. Now, I'll be the first to tell you all, I don't know a lot about these details, so I'm going to be learning right along with you guys as Bob explains it. But I think no matter where you are in the hierarchy of this business, understanding the business you're in and understanding the potential changes in that business are very important. I think we all can, argue about how big of an impact that 48-hour rule was for the SOAs that impacted us this AEP. If you focus on the Medicare space, you'll know what I'm referencing to. But it's one of those things that you should just be educated to be a business owner, whether you're first year street level person or whether you're running a massive FMO. It's good to have this information. So Bob, before we jump into that, I'd love to get some insights or background about you. What got you into the insurance space? Why Pinnacle? Why Pinnacle is so different? Just some key information, if you could.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I'll try not to go into too much into gory details, but I actually went to college, Temple University grad, for insurance. At the time, I was going to be an actuary, right? Sounds very exciting.
Oh, wow.
Going to get into a lot of numbers and whatnot. And I sort of took a left turn on that path after I graduated. I found myself at an insurance company working with now the owners and principals of Pinnacle, Kevin Shields and Angela Palo, and I found myself in more of the sales role and loved it. Right, just completely. That was my thing. I didn't go down the road of the actuary. Went into the sales side of things. And at Pinnacle, we were again a national FMO. Working with the agents and agency across the country. And we've just grown into, like you mentioned, one of the largest FMOs in the Medicare space, Medicare Advantage, Medicare Supplement, prescription drug plans, the Part D. And then we also do all the ancillary stuff, right? If you're in Medicare and you don't know what a hospital indemnity is, you probably should, right? So the ancillary products, dental, vision, hearing products, and then also we do all of the life annuities. Long-term care is another product that we are pretty successful in with our agent distribution. So our agency located right outside of Philadelphia, but we are national. We work in every state, and our primary focus is helping agents and agencies grow their business, helping them be the best partners that they are for their customers, having access to all the best products out there in the space, whatever they're selling, and doing the best we can really for helping them be successful, right? And you mentioned that, you work with, Slate, you work with Pinnacle. How does that assist you as an agency grow your footprint, right? At the end of the day, if we can help you help your beneficiaries, that's going to just make you more successful.
See, Bob talks in the official terminology of Medicare. I don't. He says beneficiaries. I say clients. So it's just something that's really refreshing, and I love hearing, and I appreciate you sharing that with us. And I would tell me if I'm wrong here, Bob, but there's only about 5 to 10 size companies of Pinnacle in our vertical, in the Medicare vertical. Is that correct?
Yeah. So there's different hierarchies. Obviously, there's a lot of agencies out there. Pinnacle is one of the few agencies that I would call top of the hierarchy for all of the major carriers. So when you look at companies like United Healthcare, Humana, Aetna, Anthem, Cigna, WellCare, you can go down the row and then into the regional carriers, you get more the Devoteds and some of the other companies that, are more, maybe not the national footprints. We are the top of the hierarchy with all those carriers. So there's a handful that, fit that definition out there. They're few and far between. So we're proud of that. I think we've grown over the years because of, great agents and agency partners that we have, like yourself, that do a great job out there, with your client base. So yeah, we've grown to a point where, we are that top level agency.
Awesome. Well, I love that, and I love hearing that. And I said it's an honor to have you on here and be a part of the Insurance Basecamp culture and family, because getting access to information from top of the hierarchy, as you call it, I think is really refreshing to our community, because we don't necessarily see that on an everyday basis. We're more concentrated on helping our agents grow or signing that next Medicare plan or next annuity or whatever it is, that we don't get a chance to maybe play in this on a consistent basis. So this is awesome. Well, with that being said, I want to be very, very protective of your time, and I'd love to jump into this question or to this topic. So when we were chatting a couple of days ago, you mentioned that this is really important to get out to the agencies, to the agency owners, to everyone in the space, so they can have a clear understanding of what the proposed rule is and how it would potentially impact us holistically. So I'd love to kind of turn that over to you and let you just give us a brief understanding of what it is. And then I'm sure I'll have some follow-up questions, but I'm anxious to learn about this because I don't really know what's going on. So I'll turn it over to you and let's get some information from you.
Yeah, absolutely. No, appreciate that. So I'm going to add some context. So I'll go back the last couple of years. So 2 years ago, and you probably remember this, CMS came out with their rule, and it was sort of last minute. They came out and said all agents working with Medicare beneficiaries are going to have to record all of their phone calls. You probably remember that. And everybody sort of looked at each other and said, okay, how are we going to do that, right? So that was the CMS final rule that came down 2 years ago. Last year, if you remember, the CMS final rule that came out made every agent what is called a TPMO, a third-party marketing organization. At the end of the day, what that really meant was any of the marketing that agents did, whether it was direct mail, social media, if you were wrapping your van, you were considered a third-party marketing organization, and all of your materials had to be filed with CMS for approval. There's a lot of compliance regulations that go along with that. And us as an FMO, we really see our spot, our position in that food chain is really assisting agents and agencies in navigating all these rules that come out. So 2 years ago, it was the call recording. And we worked with our partners at such organizations such as Connecture and Sunfire, which most Medicare agents are familiar using one of those platforms when they're doing all of their quoting, comparing, and enrolling their Medicare clients. And we got them to add the call recording. So now all the agents were able to record all the calls with their beneficiaries, right? And that really came from a lot of the complaints that were happening in Reese. I'm sure you'll remember the Joe Namaths and the JJ Walker commercials that were out there at the call centers. And there was a big spike in complaints. So that final rule, what CMS said was, we're going to, try to get those complaints under control. But what they did was they said all the agents were going to have to record their calls. Call centers were already recording their calls. It really didn't impact them. So it really just said to the agents out there, hey, you got to record all your calls. So I think it was a little bit of a miss by CMS if they were trying to really, get that under control. I mean, they sort of hit the wrong target on that. And it's not unusual when you got a big organization, a government organization such as CMS, they don't typically use a scalpel. It's more of a hammer approach when they put a rule out there. It's sort of all encompassing. So those were the last two final rules that went into place. So the proposed final rule that came out in November, so right in the middle of AEP, and that's probably why a lot of agents don't know about it, why we're trying to get the word out. The proposed final rule for 2025 really, it's a little bit scary. It's about 486 pages of light reading there, Reese. So if you want to grab that document, and it's not quite a page turner, I'll tell you that because I have read it.
No, thank you.
So the proposed final rule for 2025 really, looked at hitting agencies on their override commissions. So backtracking a little bit, there's an organization, and I always mess it up here. It's the Alliance, it's AHCP. And what that is the Alliance of Community Health Plans. So these are those smaller health plans, more regionalized, maybe even in one state in just a couple of counties. They've got this organization. And they put out an article about 6 months ago about how they were getting anti-selected against from the big carriers, because these large carriers like United Healthcare, Humana, Aetna, were giving all this money to agents, circumventing the fair market value.
Hold on real quick. You said they're giving a bunch of money to agents?
Exactly.
I don't know about other agents that are listening to this, but I didn't get any of that money. So how do I get on that train? No, I'm just joking. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, and then that was a little bit disturbing, because what the article said is that because of marketing dollars being pushed down from these large carriers all the way down to the agent level, that agents where everybody knows, their standardized commission for 2024, you're looking at $611 is going to be the new, in most states, there's a couple of variances, but $611 is going to be the new, fair market amount for agent commissions. And again, that's new to Medicare. It's half if it's a renewal commission. And those of you in the Medicare Advantage space are familiar with that. They were saying that because of these extra money being pushed down, agents were actually making upwards of $1,300 for every Medicare sale. So Reese, are you getting your $1,300?
No, that would be, I'm not going to lie. That'd be amazing. It's definitely not happening at Preferred Senior Benefits, nor do I think it's happening in any of our distribution from Slate to you guys. But that's very interesting that they're saying that.
Right. So that was an article that came out in June. Our COO, Angela Palo, actually put out a rebuttal within a couple of weeks saying, first off, where did you get the number from? What are you talking about? And really, I think it was because it was coming into AEP, and the industry was kind of quiet about that article, right? Didn't really say a whole lot. But then a couple of months later, the Alliance spoke in front of Congress, right? Along with a couple of call centers. And they really talked about how agents were being impacted by these extra dollars, were putting clients in quote unquote the wrong plans because they were being, they were being given this money. So if XYZ agency is giving money to an agent, they're more likely to put their client into XYZ agency, right? So that was sort of the premise. And it wasn't good look for the agent, right? It really did a disservice to, I think, what agents do every single day working with clients, right? And you're working with Sunfire Connecture. You know what you go through with your agents. Every year the plans change. Every year you're looking at prescriptions that an individual beneficiary has. You're looking at their doctors, making sure they're in networks. And you're meeting with individuals and you're looking at, well, what's important to them? Is it dental, vision, hearing? Is it food benefit? Is it, a gym membership? And you're going through all of those plans to find what the quote unquote best plan is. So now you've got these organizations, they're meeting in front of Congress, they're talking to CMS and they're saying agents are doing the wrong thing because they're getting all this extra money being pushed down to them and that they're getting anti-selected against. So they're being heard. And now we get the CMS final rule that's looking to take a hit at the marketing that's being done by agents. And consider in that marketing is things like Sunfire and Connecture, right? So Sunfire and Connecture as an FMO, we give to all of our agents and agencies free of charge, right? You can use Sunfire and Connecture. So they put a dollar figure on all of these services that FMOs are giving, and they're considering that extra money an incentive, right? And they're saying, okay, and you're going to laugh at this a little bit, but I think it was said one time by Will Rogers, when I make a joke, it's a joke. When Congress makes a joke, it's the law. So, we're not laughing about it. They said in this rule, we're going to take away all these extra support services that FMOs give, and we're going to give the independent agent an extra $31. So instead of $611, it's going to be $642. And the agents are going to be able to buy all this stuff on their own, and they're going to be able to support all their marketing on their own, and they're going to be able to do all their compliance because they put a dollar figure on all these services.
So hold on. Let me ask you a question. Let me put this in terms that I can understand. So what you're saying, if I'm hearing you correctly, is the government wants to essentially, let's pretend like we're McDonald's. They want to tell the franchise owner of McDonald's that McDonald's is no longer allowed to give you your supplies, your marketing, your contracts, all that stuff, but you can increase the burger cost by $1, and that extra dollar per burger sold should cover all of those things that McDonald's corporate is providing for you. Is that accurate?
That is accurate. They again, we're going to say that they missed the mark. And CMS, again, government organization, I mean, we know that they don't always have a pulse on, what's going on. They might be looking at ACA, which works a certain way, and Medicare doesn't work the same way, right? They could be looking at, commercial insurance, doesn't work the same way, so it's really scary to think that they feel as though that's not going to impact the Medicare space. And remember, Medicare Advantage plans are wildly popular, right? And Reese, you probably saw this earlier this year. Over 50% of individuals that had Medicare Part A and B now have a Medicare Advantage plan, right? That just happened this year. They're wildly popular as far as the plans go. AHIP had a survey that came out earlier this year that over 93% of individuals with a Medicare Advantage plan would recommend their plan to somebody else, right? So they're popular, and people don't realize it, but they're good for the government, right? if the government, a study came out, again, this was by the Wall Street Journal, that said if Medicare did all of their claims in the same way as Medicare Advantage, it would add 18 years automatically to the Medicare trust fund. Nothing else would have to be done, right? That article came out actually recently. Nikki Haley in the Republican debate actually brought that up as a way to push to help the Medicare Advantage trust fund without doing anything else, was to be promoting Medicare Advantage more. And what CMS is doing is the complete opposite. They're making it more difficult to market. They're making it less competitive. And a lot has to do, and we're not going to get political here, but a lot has to do with, I guess, the tone in, the landscape right now, right? So the last couple of years, there's been a different tone that's come out from CMS than there was, previously, right? People don't remember what the 2018, CMS final rule was, because it was much more positive towards Medicare Advantage. It really didn't take, a hit to the industry. So the last couple of years, listen, different administrations in there, different people are looking at it different ways. They're looking at being much more controlling in what they do, right? Maybe they don't look at the free markets quite the same way. And that's just the reality of it, right? And we're dealing with it at an industry. But right now we have this proposed rule put in front of us. And this is what it's saying. It's looking at taking away the assistance that agents and agencies get. And that, we're not just talking about dollar assistance. We're talking about services like the Connectors and Sunfires of the world. Remember, agents are now TPMOs. If an agent's doing any marketing, if they had to file with CMS all their marketing materials, all of their lead pieces, all their social media, right, they would have to get what's called an HPMS account with CMS, which we as an FMO, we do that now, right? We do all those filings. If you have a band that you want to wrap, right? You want us to file that for you. We do that. We get you the approval. You want to do a lead mailer and you want to put the Medicare red, white, and blue card on that. There's a certain way you have to do that. If you want to have your business card say you're an insurance agent or you're a Medicare agent, there's certain things that you're allowed to do. And we file that for our agents now. We do that every single day. All of those services, if FMOs aren't able to support agents and agencies, are now going to be put on agents and agencies. But Reese, don't worry, you're going to get an extra $31.
Now, look, I'll be the first one to tell you, I think the government does a great job trying to support everybody and everyone's concerns, but sometimes, like you said, things just don't get done correctly. But to give everyone some context of what Bob's referencing to, when he keeps on bringing up Sunfire or Connector, that's a tool that most of the agencies use, where we're able to compile all the key pieces of information for our clients, using that tool to be able to compare and contrast plan against plan against plan from different carriers and one platform. I cannot tell you how much more efficient and better for the client having that is versus having to go to one platform to another platform to another platform to another platform. It is crazy. So I don't know what that costs you guys. I'm assuming it's really, really expensive. But I can tell you right now, if we lost that access, or if that tool wasn't available to us from a cost perspective, where it was cost prohibitive, we would end up taking our client meetings from maybe an hour to an hour and a half to 3 to 4 hours. And my guess is it would be very confusing to the clients because we wouldn't have the ability to put everything in one place. I'm a big believer of, let's compare apples to apples. About 70% of our clients that preferred senior benefits are Medicare Advantage. About 30% are Medicare Supplement. Ultimately, we present them both options, give them the pluses and negatives of both, and then let them choose, because it is a commodity. It is something that, you have to have, in our opinion. You have to have one or the other. I mean, you don't technically have to, but you should. And you have to make that decision based on your financial situation, your health, and what makes most sense for you and your family. And I agree on what you're talking about, how we've seen that Medicare Advantage piece rise. So with that being said, why do you think this reaction is being had? What do you think their ultimate outcome is to try to make it an even playing field? Like, what do you think the goal is of CMS?
The goal, well, you're right. I think their goal at the end of the day is to make sure that beneficiaries are getting put in the correct plan. I think what they're talking about doing will have the exact opposite effect because of what you and I are talking about. And there was a article that came out that the average individual across the country has access to 43 different plans to choose from. Now, how would an independent agent be able to accurately compare 43 plans without access to these types of technologies? It would be virtually impossible. So what you would have happening is you would actually have agents probably condensing their plan offerings and picking less plans to choose from, right? These regional plans that are saying they're getting anti-selected against would actually be impacted negatively more, because as an agent, how could you have 43 plans, have access to side-by-side comparisons? And if you didn't have that, how could you accurately do that apples to apples comparison? So I think CMS is looking for individuals. I think they're listening and they're hearing maybe some cost savings in a way, right? If they can cut out some of these other fees that are being paid in some way to the carriers. I don't know what the dollar amount on that would be, but the overall impact would be, we believe, opposite to what they're talking about. Right now, agents are able to give that best apples to apples comparison using what they have. And that's why it's so popular.
So let me play devil's advocate, because once again, I'm not for or against any of this stuff. I'm just wanting to learn with you, and I'm reacting to the information you're giving me. So what, I guess, if I'm playing devil's advocate and I'm coming from the viewpoint of these smaller carriers, right? Because we work with smaller carriers, regional carriers here locally in the Idaho, Utah market, Select Health, Pacific Source, things like that.
Sure.
What's in place now to mitigate what you're saying isn't happening currently? Because I can tell you right now, we don't see, what was it, $1,300 per application or something. So we don't see that. But obviously someone's saying it's being seen somewhere or something like that. So what's in place right now to mitigate that from that viewpoint? Like, what's in there now to say, no, you're actually not being, this is not being done. Here's the other options or things like that.
Yeah. So look at a couple of things. You mentioned Select Health, for example, and we've seen this with other small regional carriers. We're in the Pennsylvania area. Independence Blue Cross in the 5 counties around us, they own Pennsylvania. I don't care if your name's United Healthcare. I don't care if your name's Humana. They own this space. And we've seen that year over year where regional carriers, if they have the best product, they have growth. They have growth greater than a lot of the large carriers many times. Now, United Healthcare, Humana, they have national footprints. I wouldn't expect Independent Blue Cross to have the same amount of total beneficiaries working in 5 counties in the state of Pennsylvania as United Healthcare does. But when you look at percentage growth year over year, we will see some of the smaller carriers, the regional carriers, if their products are the best products, have growth percentage-wise larger than those companies. So I believe that the agents, because they are doing their due diligence, because they are using the services available to them, are giving their beneficiaries the best plan. And if it's a regional carrier, if it's a smaller carrier, that's what they're giving them, right? Devoted Health is a great example. They are a company that is in only a handful of states, but their percentage growth year over year these last couple of years far exceeds companies like Humana and United Healthcare. And it's just because their products have been strong, right? They are giving the stronger option out there. So I think there's already in the free markets, in the landscape that we're in, already it's set up to do that. And I think to keep in mind that $1,300, I think part of what they were talking about is these types of services like the Connectors and Sunfire. So they've sort of put that dollar amount on those arbitrarily So it's not saying necessarily $1,300 in cash. It's saying $611 is the fair market value. Plus they're getting these dollars amount from all these other services that they're getting in a way. They're getting, marketing, assistance and those kind of things. So I think it's difficult as for us to understand that they would take this viewpoint when you look at the actual data, right? Yeah. So if the carriers out there are providing the best plans, and listen, United Healthcare, they're the big dog on the street. I will tell you that we are hearing from United Healthcare that 2024 AEP was not what they wanted, right? They lost market share nationally.
Really?
Versus the previous year. And that happens, right? It's because of the plans. And that's just the bottom line. The agents are doing the right thing out there for the beneficiaries. And we see that because we are using all these carriers across the country. And Reese, by the way, not every regional carrier will give an FMO a contract.
Correct.
They just won't. I just can't wake up one day and say, hey, I want to offer XYZ company in such and such a state and call them up and they're going to give us a contract. So we don't necessarily even have access to every single carrier, even if we wanted to, right? Even if it made sense and hey, this carrier makes, has a good product in, these 3 counties in this state, doesn't automatically mean we're going to be able to get that contract. So, there's some things to understand about that.
Well, and I think, coming from the agency or agent perspective, I can just talk on my experience and what my team is trained on, is that ultimately, even if there was extra money on the table, which I don't ever see, but maybe in other places there is, I'm ultimately geared to do what's best for my client. Now, let's talk about it on two different, I guess, viewpoints. Viewpoint number one, which is the one that we focus on, is it's what's best for the customer, what's going to give them the best health insurance, what's going to make their lives the best, what makes us feel good about what we do. Because that's ultimately, and I think this, Bob, I started Preferred Senior Benefits because of what happened to my grandfather, and I will make sure that never happens to another senior again. So there's that piece. But let's look at it from a different viewpoint as a business owner. If we put the person on the right plan the first time, it's a lot easier for us to deal with anything going down the path later on. It just makes the job easier, right? If I put somebody on the right plan, whether it's a United Healthcare, Humana, Pacific Source, Blue Cross, whatever, they're less likely to have issues, which means I'm less likely to have issues. So it's interesting to hear that they really think people or agents are putting people on worse plans, because in my viewpoint, if I were to put somebody on a wrong plan knowingly, that's just going to cause a lot of issues for me down the road.
Right.
Like we see this a lot in the Medicare, Medicaid space. So not necessarily putting somebody on the wrong plan, but somebody is on Medicare, Medicaid. You put them on the perfect plan, whether it's, here in Idaho, there's really only 3 carriers that have those type of contracts. You put them on that plan, but then 3 months later, they get kicked off of Medicaid. They don't know it. We don't know it. And then it lapses and it causes all these massive issues. And then we have to do a bunch of extra work to help our clients figure out what the next steps are. Now, that's not in our control, but I could see that happening on the Medicare Advantage space specifically. If you were like, oh, this plan gives me an extra $100 or whatever it is, because what I think I'm hearing you say is agents are pushing people to these wrong plans, or steering them, I think that's the correct wording, to these plans that are worse for them. I feel like that would just cause a massive issue. Are you guys seeing that in the market?
No, absolutely not. And the data doesn't show that that's happening anywhere, right? It's just what I said. United Healthcare has always been the biggest company out there, right? And 2024, they're taking a little bit of a hit, right? Some of the competition is a little bit stronger in a lot of the areas where they had historically had a bigger footprint. So they took a little hit this year, it looks like. So we're not seeing it. I don't think the data shows that it's the case. And I believe that we can always point to the minuscule amount of bad actors. And if we're going to make policy based on that, I think, that's missing the mark. Because historically, to what you're saying, it's the agents are doing what's best because They don't want to have a complaint. They don't want to have the client giving them, calling them, hey, my doctor's not in network. This drug's not in the formulary, whatever the case may be. Who would want that call, right? That's only going to have you lose a client. You want to have happy clients that are giving you referrals and helping you, build your business. That's what you're looking for as an independent agent. And commissions are already regulated. The commissions across the board are the same. That already happens. It might not be the same way in a call center because of they're W-2 employees and but that's where I think CMS is looking at it as one big industry and not looking at like, here's the independent agents, here's the call center, here's direct to consumer, that the carriers might have themselves, right? So those all work a little bit differently. As an independent business person, you're looking to grow your business, right? Happy agents or happy beneficiaries is going to help you sustain and grow your business. So it doesn't really make sense, and we don't see that.
I agree. Well, I want to, like I said, respect your time, and I want to make the podcast very key. So before we end, is there any other key pieces of information or things you'd like to share with the Insurance Basecamp's family to make sure they understand what's going on and or what they should be doing to make their voices heard, whether they're for or against this proposed new law?
Yeah, absolutely. So there is a way that we're in the comment phase. So agents and agencies should be commenting. We actually have on our website, I don't know if it makes sense to share my screen and I can show where they can go for that.
Yeah, does it give you the ability to do it?
Yeah, I got it right here. So I'm going to just share my screen. It's on our website, but all right, you can see it popping up here.
Yep.
This is on pfsinsurance.com. Right on our homepage. I'll go to our homepage here. Here you go. You can't miss that, right?
Yep.
If you click on that, you're going to go to the page we have, which we took those 486 pages, Reese, and we kind of broke it out. We put some context around it. What are some of the things that are being put in this $1,300 that you could possibly lose? How to contact your senators and your representatives. We actually took from each of the pages what they're actually saying in the rule to make it a little bit easier to break down. You have to comment by January 5th. That's when the comment section is up. Here's where you can go to comment. It's a direct link to that. And we actually give some information on how to comment. Don't assume, is my number one recommendation. Don't assume that CMS knows how you as an independent agent do business, right? You want to put in there, you want to say, hey, I meet with my clients. We go through the plans and we put in the prescription drugs using Connection or Sunfire. We put in their doctors and specialists to make sure they're in network. We talk about the extra benefits like the dental, vision, hearing. You want to really go into all of that when you are commenting in here. And if you want your voice heard, you have to comment by January 5th because we don't want to assume. Remember, CMS isn't giving us a lot of feedback right now on the 486 pages. So we're reading it and I hate to say we have to take a little bit of a glass half empty view of it because once the rule is the rule, that's what we're left with, right? So we want to go at this looking at a little bit of worst case scenario, making sure that when CMS is reading all these comments, they understand that if they did take certain approaches to the rule, what the impact would be. So right to our homepage, you can click the comment. It goes right to I'm going to click on it here. It goes right to, and I think I can change the tab here.
Yeah, I think it's popping up in a new tab.
I'm not sure how to change the tab, but okay, it's popping up. It'll go right to the page. How you comment is right here. And Reese, if the agents do anything, I think spending 15, 20 minutes doing this is important if you plan on growing your business in the Medicare space, right? We want to make sure that worst case scenario doesn't happen, right? We can't assume. And I think that's the big thing as a takeaway. We want the agents and agencies listening to to take from this.
Sure. Well, I appreciate that. We'll make sure to put the link in all of the places that we post our first podcast. And look, for every agency owner, agent out there, FMO out there, look, this is your business. I mean, whether your income comes from overrides, whether your income comes from street level, the majority of my income comes from street level as well as my team. My wife's an agent for us. This is really important to us. And ultimately, I want to make sure that seniors are taken care of, and I want to make sure that it's done the most appropriate and ethical way possible. And understanding, I think at this point, to Bob's point, this is just CMS not understanding enough about our business and trying to make assumptions without having the correct information. Once they have the correct information, I believe they'll do what's right and understand that we need the support, we need these tools, and we need these systems, as well as making sure that everything is on an even keel playing field and making sure everyone's being represented. So, Bob, I just want to thank you so much for being on our first ever podcast at the Insurance Basecamp for our Insurance Basecamp family. We're really excited to start launching this here early 2024, but we thought it was important to get this one out now because you only have until, you said it's the 4th or the 5th? The 5th, right there in front of me to get that information out. So, Bob, thank you so much for your time, for giving us this great information. Insurance Basecamp family, thank you for taking 20, 30 minutes out of your day to get educated on what's going on in the insurance space, particularly the Medicare space for this particular podcast. Keep an eye out for some future podcasts coming down the pipe. And if you have any good ideas, people that you want on the podcast, please don't hesitate to DM me directly, Reese Phillips, on, X, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, LinkedIn, and give me some recommendations. But once again, Bob, thank you so much for your time. Look forward to chatting with you. And if we don't talk to you beforehand, have a Merry Christmas. Okay, Bob?
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate your time, Reese, and have a happy holidays as well. Merry Christmas.
You too. Bye-bye.
Take it easy.